Introducing Travel Well podcast series presented by packitup.org.
And you're tuned in to the Travel Well podcast series on your Visionary podcast, brought to you by Pack It Up University. And I am the host, Christian Brown. I'm excited to come to you today with the first introduction episode, just to give you an idea of who I am and what the purpose of this podcast series is. And I'll share a little bit about the guests that you'll be hearing from. And I'll also tell you why you should listen and be a part of this series. So first, the entire purpose for this series and the idea for this series is started from my personal journey as a global citizen. So about 4 years ago, I moved from Atlanta, Georgia to Paris, France. And it was a dream of mine for about 5 years. I had it on my vision board every year, and I would just think about it, pray about it, dream about it. And I was finally able to make it happen through a series of just challenges and making connections and being very intentional. And so once I made that leap and became a global citizen, I started meeting other people who did the same thing, who left their home country and moved abroad. Then I also started meeting people who were curious about moving abroad, and they also share a dream of wanting to live abroad, but they just had a few things that were keeping them back and holding them back. And I thought it would be a good idea to have this podcast series to document some of the stories of the people that did move abroad, with the hope of inspiring and encouraging those who still have that dream of moving abroad. Because before I made the leap, I had some challenges that are normal, right? Like, I didn't have a community of people that lived abroad. When I would tell people that I want to move abroad, I would get weird responses. Some people would think I was crazy. Some people didn't believe me. But I had this faith and this dream of being a global citizen, and I knew in my heart that I could make it happen. And I'm not alone in this. And so with the podcast series, we're going to talk about those stories. You'll meet some of the people that I've met along the way of my journey, and hopefully their stories will inspire you and encourage you to make the leap abroad if that's on your heart. Or it would encourage you to just think about what life could be for you if you decided to leave your home country and move somewhere new. So some of the topics that we'll talk about in this episode, they're all topics related to personal growth and personal development. Because for me and everybody who you'll hear from on the podcast, moving abroad was and is a journey of self-discovery, personal growth, and self-improvement. It's not about just going abroad so you can take nice pictures, so you can, try to build up this image of wanting people to look at you a certain way. The journey of moving abroad for me and for everyone on this podcast series was about growing and evolving to become a better version of themselves. And so if you're interested in doing that same thing, you're in the right place. Because some of the topics we'll talk about is, what it means to take a leap of faith, right? What that looks like in different stories. And we'll also talk about how embracing the unknown can lead to incredible growth and incredible discovery throughout the journey. We'll talk about following your heart and how to first identify what's going on in your heart, and then learn how to just be quiet and listen, whether that's through meditation, through prayer, through taking some time to take little trips just to see what it's like to be alone in a new place, and then seeing what speaks to you and what speaks to your heart in that journey. And then also we'll talk about self-discovery. Now, I mentioned how self-discovery is one of the major purposes and benefits of moving abroad, because there's this quote that says, wherever you go, there you are. And that means no matter where you go in the world, you always have yourself and you're always with yourself. And so the more that you feel comfortable with yourself, the more you can feel comfortable anywhere in the world, right? Because now for me in this position where I've lived abroad for almost 4 years now and traveled to over 30 countries, I've come to a point where no matter where I go in the world, I feel comfortable because I know myself. And I know that I'm on this journey of self-discovery, and every experience just gives me more information about the version of me that I'm creating. And so that's like this mindset that I believe you develop over time as you spend some time abroad. And it's just a beautiful journey of self-discovery. And then we'll talk about perseverance. Perseverance meaning the act of pursuing your goals, pursuing your dreams, and never giving up. Because on this journey, of course, there are going to be a lot of pitfalls, a lot of trials and tribulations. Finances is always a big one, but family, friends, loneliness, all of these things that make you want to just go back home, make you want to curl up in your bed and just stop pursuing the goal. Perseverance is the act of feeling all those emotions and deciding to keep going anyway, despite what may be bringing you down and taking you down. So we'll also talk about overcoming burnout, which is cool because a few of the guests on the podcast series, they moved abroad in order to overcome burnout. They were working really hard where they were in the U.S. and they felt like they were overdoing it and they needed a break. They needed to take a step back and just get away from everything. And so they decided to take a leap of faith and move abroad, and it gave them an opportunity to start over, to start a new life, have a fresh start in a new country. And so some of you watching this may be in the place where you feel burnt out, where you feel stagnant. You feel like you're putting in so much work, but you're just not moving. Moving abroad could be a solution for that. And so really the format for these episodes is not super structured. I didn't really take too much time to try to come up with a predictable structure. I really just wanted to tell their stories. I wanted to talk to my friends and get an understanding for why they moved abroad and what were their main challenges. And so the main goal is just to tell a story. I'm a storyteller. I think podcasts are a cool way to hear people's stories in a conversational format. And so you can expect to hear that. It'll feel like just a conversation between two friends that you're able to look into. So imagine, we were in Paris when I recorded all these episodes. So imagine we're sitting at a cafe in Paris, me and whoever I'm talking to, and you're just that third person at the table just listening into a conversation about moving abroad. That's how I want these episodes to feel, just like a conversation. And on that note, the conversation, it's important to know who is talking. And so I want to spend a couple of minutes just highlighting the guests, and I'll also share the story of how I met each of these guests. So it's five people that I'll be talking to. And since I moved to Paris, I kind of built this I wouldn't say a brand, but also built this reputation of being one connection away. Because literally every day, whenever I post content, whenever I make videos, whenever I even talk to people in person, I always say like, hey, you're one connection away from your dream. No matter what your dream is, there's somebody in the world that you can meet that can help you get one step closer to that. And so you'll hear me mention one connection away a lot. And so all of these stories are like one connection away stories because I met these people just kind of by chance, but they became friends, and now they decided to do this podcast series with me and share their stories with you. So the first episode, the first person is Donatella. And so Donatella is a student from the U.S., from Washington, D.C., and she moved to Paris to get her master's, I think in global communications, but she's an artist, and we met at a mutual friend's birthday dinner. And it was so cool how it happened because it was in Paris. I got invited to celebrate a friend's birthday. And so I get to the street, super cool Parisian street, and I see like two girls kind of standing across from the restaurant. They were looking for the restaurant. I was looking for the restaurant, and we like made eye contact. And I think I said bonjour or something, but we made eye contact, and then I just kept going about my way. And then we get to the table and we see each other and make eye contact again, and then we just start laughing and smiling, and then we introduce ourselves, and that's how I met Donatella. And she's has a really, really cool story, and she's very, very, very passionate about her journey as a Black woman living abroad. And so she shares a lot of stories and comments about that, which I think is really cool and also insightful as well. So the episode with Donatella was really fun, and we recorded it outside at the WeWork office, and we had a great convo. So you'll expect to hear from Donatella. And then second was Dr. Aditi Joshi. And so Dr. Aditi, she is from Chicago, so she's American as well. and she moved abroad. She moved abroad in order to avoid burnout. So she's a doctor, a medical emergency doctor. And so she spent a lot of time working in the ER. I think it was during COVID, or right before COVID. And she was building out certain programs inside of the ER at a hospital. And she said that within a couple months, they went from 20 patients to 1,000 patients. And she said it was just way too much. She got burnt out. And so she decided to just leave it all behind. And so it was really interesting because with her, she was well into her career. So it wasn't like she was moving abroad as a student or, as someone early in their career. She's well established, a doctor, has financial stability, but she still found value in moving abroad. And in the episode with her, she's able to share some clinical psychological facts about like how to deal with stress, how to deal with relationships and people second guessing you or doubting your journey of moving abroad. And so I really love the conversation with her because it's cool, it's chill, but since she's a doctor, she speaks in a way that you feel like you're learning something every second from her. And so I love that. I love the conversation with her. Then third, it was a conversation with my friend Lauren. And Lauren, Lauren's interesting. She's a fashion. She's from the U.S., from Minnesota, I think, but she is deep into fashion, and she has I want to say like alter ego. I don't know what to really call it, but you'll see on the episode. But she's very, very creative, very, very interesting, and she talks a lot about how she moved abroad in order to find her people, because she's from Minnesota, where there's not a lot of, really cool fashion people, I would guess. And so she wanted to just move somewhere where there was fashion and where she could really thrive in her career. And so it didn't look exactly how she planned it, but it still allowed her to grow and become the person she is today. And so I think that is a cool story as well, because not every time, for every person, moving abroad is a great experience. Sometimes it's hurtful, sometimes it's just not how you planned it, but there's still value and there's beauty in that too. So that's an exciting episode. And then Loanne is someone who is French, but then moved abroad to Canada. And no, she's from Martinique, but moved to France and then moved to Canada. And so her story is really interesting because she's someone who moved abroad 2 times. And each time was a different story and a different phase of her life. But she learned so much. And she really has great knowledge on what it takes to build your career abroad. One of her projects is a project to help people get a job abroad. And so she talks a little bit about that. And she's just a great person. And then lastly, Kathy is from Taiwan, and she moved to Paris first as a student, and then she got a job, and then she started her own business, right? And so she's lived abroad for maybe 8 years now. And so she has more just knowledge and more in a bigger story of her life abroad and the things she had to overcome, and also the different phases of life abroad. If you decide to stay for, over 5 years, close to 10 years, or the rest of your life, there are going to be different phases of your journey abroad. And so she shares hers, and it's really cool. And then lastly, bonus episode will be with Dr. Nikki Price, who's also American and moved to Paris. And I'm really excited for that episode because it wasn't one that I did in person when I recorded the rest of these. This was done later because I met Dr. Nikki while I was preparing for the Mental Health Champions Conference, which was a conference that my startup Blemish hosted during the Paris Olympics to really highlight the intersection between mental health, physical health, and technology. And so she wrote a book about shame, and she also moved to Paris to overcome burnout. And so the goal was to just get together and connect for the conference. And it never happened, but we kept in touch. And now we have something really cool planned, which will be shared a little bit later on in the series. But she has a great story and great energy, so that's going to be a great episode as well. And so each of these women are just amazing. And the topics that you'll hear and that you'll learn from them specifically, I think they matter because it's easy to feel like you know people and you know just like what life will look like for you. But when you hear people's stories and you're able to learn from their mistakes and get their wisdom, it helps you to change how you go about your own life. There's an African proverb that says, smart people learn from their own mistakes. Wise people learn from the mistakes of others. And stupid people never learn. Right? And so this idea of learning from other people's mistakes, it gives you a piece of wisdom that you can really take and build with internally. And so I think if you're someone who wants to really move abroad or just even start traveling abroad more intentionally, you want to get away from like for men, there's this culture of like the passport bros, where you go abroad and you like sleep with women and you try to just have foreign relations. And then on the women's side, there's this concept of just like going abroad, taking the best pictures and like leaving, right? But I think there's so much more to learn and gain from moving abroad on a personal and spiritual level. And so if you're someone who is thinking about that and you want that, I think you really found value in this podcast series. And so I want you to just make sure that you subscribe to Your Visionary Podcast. Make sure that you leave a review. Make sure you share the podcast with anybody that you know who loves to travel and who you think would benefit from moving abroad, and share this with them. And if you have anybody who is living abroad and you're interested in hearing their story, email their name in their Instagram or social media or whatever. Email it to connect@packitup.org. connect@packitup.org, and our team will reach out to them and see if we can get them on the podcast series as well. But that's it. Hope you're excited for this series and hope you learn something. And if you do, make sure you share it with somebody and then join Pack It Up University, an online community for like-minded people to connect. Because like I said at the beginning of this episode, one of the biggest hurdles is having a community of people who share the same mindset, share the same desires, and can encourage you and hold you accountable towards reaching your dreams. So that's it for this episode. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace and love.